Well, good day, my friends. It's your old pal, Jordan the Lion. How are you all doing today? I hope you said great. I'm doing excellent because today I get to check something off my bucket list. I have been wanting to check out Elvis's first purchased home that is in Memphis, Tennessee. It's known as the Audobon house because it was on Audobon, and I've never got to see it. So who else better to take me over and kind of share some stories with you and me but the spa guy. So we are gonna check out the Audobon house together. Daze with Jordan the Lion and you all begins right now. So here we are, nice peaceful, quiet property that is, I mean, it looks pretty similar, I think, to the way it did. And it's now owned by Mike Curb. If you remember my traveling around North Carolina, we went to the Curb Motorsports Museum. That Mike Curb, he also is big in the music industry and has a record label. And he's kept the house pretty cool inside. Now, Billy, you, my friend, have been in this house pretty recently, right?
Yeah, I've been in this house a lot of times, and Ronnie McDowell actually invited me to come. They were doing a concert here. I think it was in November or December of 2024, and so I got to come spend a couple of days here and filming different things. So it was a lot of fun to go in the house. Now, sadly, I was never able to go in the house before it burned. Now,
yeah, there was a fire, right?
It was a fire. It didn't burn down, but it damaged the inside of it. So originally when Elvis lived here, the interior of it was real wood.
Okay.
Now it's sheetrock because it damaged enough of the wood they had to remove it. Now something that's interesting is when Elvis bought Graceland, so he would have left this house and gone to Graceland. Wrigley's Gum in Chicago tried to buy the interior of this house, the wood. They were going to cut it up in small pieces and put it in sticks of gum to sell.
Oh, wow.
And the guy that owned the house wouldn't do that. But so the wood could have gone to that, but that never happened. But it's a beautiful home. It's 4 bedrooms, which is a very large home for the time. And you can see it's a really nice neighborhood. So this was considered a really high-end area. This was an area that Elvis and Vernon and Gladys would have never lived in unless Elvis would have gotten famous like he did.
Now, you told me, you know, as we were driving up here, you had kind of a theory on how you thought maybe he found this place.
Yeah, they lived at 1414 Getwell, which if you go back down Audubon and go to Rhodes and turn to the right, Getwell is just over there. So I believe that Elvis bought his first motorcycle, which was a Harley Hummer, which is a very inexpensive as Harleys go in 1950.
Like a starter bike, maybe?
It was a starter bike. It didn't even have shocks. It was one where the seat, it was, you know, it beat you to death. So he actually traded that bike for a very nice bike when he lived at this house. But when he got the first motorcycle, of course, when you're buying a motorcycle for the first time, you've got to learn to ride.
Yeah.
So my theory is that he would have left that house dreaming about buying a larger home because he was starting to make some money. And you see how curvy that road right there is.
Yeah, yeah.
He would have ridden through here going to the park. The park is this way. So if you go through here, Audubon Park, if you go to the end of Audubon and turn to your right and turn left, you go through Audubon Park. That's how he ended up finding the lions that are at Graceland, because he rode through Audubon Park to Cherry Street, which is just across, and that's where he saw the lions the first time. So I think he rode through here on his motorcycle, saw this house for sale, probably went and told mom and dad. They came back and looked, and it was very close. So they ended up in this part of town. Now, they actually went to a dinner party at a house down here on the right-hand side. The guy named E.H. Crump, which kind of ran Memphis for a long time, that was his daughter's house and his granddaughter's house. Her name was Palace Pigeon, the granddaughter. And Elvis and June's friend Pat and Nick, the guy from Rebel Without a Cause, Nick Adams.
Yeah, Nick Adams.
And I think Jimmy Kingsley was here. They all went to a dinner party. They would have never been invited to a dinner party because those were the upper echelon, if you will, of Memphis elite, if you will. They would have never gotten to a dinner party, but Gladys and Vernon and all of them went. There's a house down on the right. But it was because they lived in this neighborhood. Another thing that happened is Fred Smith, the founder of FedEx, lived right around that corner down there. and I showed you the house a while ago.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
came here and swam in Elvis's swimming pool as a kid. So Elvis arrived here on July the 4th, 1956. He actually walked from White Station from the train. They stopped at White Station. He got off and walked here about 5 miles so he could rest because he was going to do a show that night at Russwood Park. That day when he got here, the swimming pool was being filled up. So there's photos of Elvis in the pool when he came here to rest. There's also photos that day that some say that the phone call, there's a photo of Elvis standing there and you can see Billy Smith and you can see Vernon behind him in the bathroom.
Yeah, yeah.
They say that phone call is when he was called saying that he was going to be on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Inside this house.
Inside this house. He had just arrived back from New York on the train.
Now he bought this in what, 56?
In 56, yeah.
So he was, in 56, that's the year he became a millionaire, wasn't it?
Well, this house was purchased by the residuals from Heartbreak Hotel.
That's what I thought.
The first hit. That was recorded, I think, the 9th and 10th of January of 1956. Released at the end of January 1956. They purchased this, I think, I'm going from memory, I think April. And so it happened very, very quickly. Now, as far as him becoming a millionaire, he became a gazillionaire while he lived in this house. Think about it this way. And he actually didn't pay. This house was, what, $35,000 at that time, somewhere in that neighborhood. So they started selling Elvis merch in June of 1956. So from June to December of 1956, while Elvis was living in this house, they sold merch like hats and shoes,
anything
and
you could put his
and
face
all
on.
This stuff. They sold. How much would you say?
Well, I think I heard the number. Didn't he generate like $28 million?
$26 million.
$26 million that year.
In 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So he got very, very, very wealthy when he lived at this
and
house.
He had a lot of hits that year as well, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. All kinds of hits, yeah.
So is this
But Heartbreak Hotel purchased this house.
Yeah. So isn't this also the house that he took that famous gold lame suit photo in, or what?
Yes.
He had?
Yeah, they say the gold lame suit was taken in here by the fireplace. That's right.
And that was the cover of the famous
50 million fans can't be wrong.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Now I saw your video with Ronnie McDowell, and he's talking about when he would stay here, and said that, you know, girls were just all over the place. I don't know if the fence was here or what, but he said they were literally like looking in the windows all the way around the house.
Yeah. Now, originally, when they bought the house, the fence was not here. They built these two square things that the lights are on top of first. You could see photos of that. Then they added the fence. Then they added this. Then they added the barbed wire. It still didn't keep the girls out. There's photos. You can find photos of girls. I saw it maybe in Life magazine, where they took pictures of the girls standing like all around the house, just like looking in the windows. And there's a story about a girl. I actually reached out to her. She was still alive, to see if she would tell her story, and she wouldn't. But she would go and knock on Elvis's window, and he would finally just tell her, "Hey, you just need to go home. I'm not letting you in. You just need to leave." And I think she was embarrassed for the story to be told.
Would the peas on the awnings have been there at the time?
Yeah, I think there was well, you know, I don't think so. Man, it's changed so much over a period of time. There's a lot of variations to it. I will say this, when he bought it, there was a carport. There was no garage doors.
Right. Wasn't there like a photo of him with his motorcycle in there?
Yeah, and also Vernon and Gladys standing there. There's all kinds of photos. There's also photos of Elvis, Vernon, and Gladys standing by a mailbox right here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's also photos of Elvis leaving on a motorcycle, and you can see those houses across the street. That little barn that you see in the house to the left.
Oh, yeah.
You can see that in the photos.
That's amazing.
But what I was going to tell you is they added the garage door to the front to try to keep people from going to the backyard.
Okay.
And now there's a garage door on both sides, and it's completely closed in. Now, when I was here with Ronnie, of course, the mailbox is gone. So
yeah,
I looked in there's storage rooms on the left of the carport of the garage, and there's a mailbox in one of them. And I was like, oh, there's the mailbox. But I pulled the photos out. It doesn't match the photos,
unfortunately.
You know? Yeah.
He had a pool table here, didn't he?
It was like a snooker table.
Okay, like a smaller version.
And that would have been in the 3rd bedroom back. So this right here was Elvis's bedroom in the front, the one that you see with the 2 single beds.
Yeah.
There's photos of him and Gladys sitting on the beds and teddy bears.
That would have been right here?
That would have been this first room.
Okay, I'll show those photos.
There's a bathroom, the one that you see behind Elvis when he's talking on the phone that Vernon's in.
Yeah.
Then there's a bedroom that was Grandma's bedroom. Then there's the next bedroom was where the pool table was, and then there's a giant bedroom in the back. So all 4 bedrooms are on this side, front to back.
And there's a pool, as you mentioned.
There's a swimming pool that he had built, of course. Yeah, the pool's been filled back in now, sadly.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, they filled it in because I think it was in bad disrepair.
Yeah.
Plus, it was a liability for
anybody that might jump the fence.
That's right. Or if they were doing events here, somebody fall in it. There's also photos of, there's a pool house to the left, and it really wasn't a pool house. It was like a little outbuilding, a garage that they've turned into a pool house now. But I found photos of the Messerschmitt. You know, the Messerschmitt was gifted to Elvis from RCA for Heartbreak Hotel. So that Messerschmitt would have been at this home. There's photos of Elvis with it here. But there's photos of the Messerschmitt in the garage, and there's a riding lawnmower next to it. I've tried to find that riding lawnmower or a duplicate of it. So far, I've not found it, but they had their first riding lawnmower here. This was the beginning of the money. This is when life changed for Elvis. And by the way, Vernon planted these 2 trees that you see. When they moved to Graceland, these were saplings.
Wow, these 2 front ones?
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that was said in your video by Ronnie McDowell that I really loved is he said, I don't care what anybody says, this is Elvis's true love house. He said because he had more time in this house with his family, getting to enjoy his riches and things. What do you think?
Well, I think Graceland was the final love, of course. You know,
right.
I think he would have kept that. Because you got to think about, Elvis didn't own that many homes.
Yeah, and he probably could have kept this one if he wanted to at the time.
Yeah, of course he could. Yeah, I mean, they traded this for Graceland, you know, but at the time, Graceland was 100,000, like 130,000, you know, if you consider this one's paid for 135,000, and he was making millions. So what's $100,000, you know?
Yeah. So how long did he live here? Just until they bought Graceland?
A year and 4 months about. Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Because that's one of those things you always wonder about, knowing Elvis and knowing how, you know, generous he was. It's kind of surprising he just didn't say to one of his cousins or aunt and uncle, hey, why don't you take my old house?
Well, it wasn't that kind of money yet. It was just kind of the beginning of that kind of money.
I know you said he traded this in towards it. I'm just kind of surprised by that.
Yeah. And another thing that that I wanted to bring up is, how did he end up at 1414 Getwell to end up at this house? Because this is a completely different part of town from where they lived.
Yeah.
And though I didn't show it to you, but when we were coming down Getwell over here, if you'd have stayed straight and turned to the left on McEvers, that's where Sam Phillips lived. So Sam lived over here. He lived just over there, just maybe a quarter of a mile. And so I think he ended up in this part of town because of Sam.
Nice.
Yeah.
So cool. I love that the owners have at least made it available for different events and rental and things like that. And like people like you can get in, and people like me someday get in there and check it out. I know from seeing on your video that the rooms they rebuilt, they actually have the photos there so you can see the matchup.
Yes, if there's a photo of Elvis or Gladys or Vernon in a spot in the house, they put a photo there so you could see that they were in the home. And they did a good job, and I'm just glad that they didn't bulldoze it. But when it burned, and like I say, it didn't burn down, it just damaged, it did damage the roof. What's bizarre is I came here and flew the drone over it, and then like one day and like 3 days later it burned.
Wow.
And so I came back.
Do you know how it burned?
Electrical fire is what they think. Yeah, because, you know, it's an older home and that kind of stuff. So they got to fix all of that, you know, to start over with the electric and that kind of stuff. So very interesting home. And this is a place where Elvis, his fame just started going nuts.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a story when he lived here down the road here, not far. It's a Japanese restaurant now, but back then it was a movie theater. June Waniko was here with her friend Pat, and her and Pat and Elvis went to the movies with a limo. The police came in, they were up in the balcony, and the police came in and said, hey, there's people destroying your car. They're tearing the the seats out of it. They're tearing the leather. And
yeah, souvenir hunters.
They're souvenir hunters. They're just destroying your car. We need to get you out of here. So as they're trying to leave, Pat's shirt got ripped off. And Elvis thought it was the funniest thing because they were in the police car and Pat is wearing nothing but a bra. And Elvis just laughed so hard, it made Pat really mad. Now, we know that because Globetrotting with Trey actually interviewed Pat before she passed away. Sadly, she's passed. But he got to talk to her about all these events and all these things that happened. And even rode around with Pat in Biloxi where she could tell where stories and different things happen.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely go check out Spa Guy's channel. Check out Globetrotting with Trey. They go deep on Elvis history.
We want to know the minutia, the little tiny pieces. It all put together, it makes a giant puzzle of who Elvis was. We try to make Elvis not this icon, but an actual person, because he was a real person. And I just think it's important to make him real instead of this fake icon
which I
like
feel
Santa
like
Claus.
that's what the movie and all that stuff has done. It's they changed all the amazing historical facts to different things that didn't really happen or happened differently. Why do you have to do that when the guy was so fascinating to begin with, right?
Elvis's story does not need help, Boz Lerman.
Yeah.
Doesn't need help. Notes from this fence all over the world.
Yeah, he's saying that where all these circular sections were, they used to have music notes. So if you don't have Spa Guy here to give you the tour like we did today, they do have a little plaque here that says on March 20th, 1956, Elvis Presley and his parents, Vernon and Gladys, moved into 1034 Audubon Drive, purchased with royalties from his first $1 million selling record, Heartbreak Hotel. It was the year that defined his career. The home is now owned by Mike Curb family, dedicated to the support of music education and the restoration of historic music locations. 2006, the foundation created the Mike Curb Institute for Music at Rhodes College, which is here in Memphis, actually.
For this right here, he stuck his newspaper. You see he had a newspaper. He stuck it right here, and he's jumping over.
Yeah.
So that's him jumping over that right there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Billy, if people loved this tour of this house, going to your channel, they'll find a lot more. But if they come to Memphis, you are going to, in the future, be having tours that people can take with you, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We've done them before. It's not something that we do all the time, but occasionally we will have tours and that kind of stuff, absolutely.
And check out Billy's Tiger Man Dojo, presented by the Spa Guy, that is also here in Memphis, Tennessee. It's back, and if you want to see the Elvis ambulance, the ambulance that took Elvis to the hospital that last time, you can see it there, along with a heck of a lot of other cool memorabilia.
And all kinds of Elvis stories. If you want to know about Elvis, we can tell you.
Thank you, Billy. We will see everyone next time. Have a great night, everyone, and goodbye.
Appreciate it.